I'm going to read some basic instructions for the jury, and then we will proceed on with this court case. Does everyone understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Also, I'm going to instruct the audience members there will be no outbursts. If you have a hat on and you're not a bailiff or anything like that, please remove your hat. Thank you. I'm going to go over the jury instructions right now. Members of the jury, the law requires I read the following instructions to you in an open courtroom. You must decide the facts in this case based on the evidence that has been presented into this trial. Do not let bias, prejudice, sentiment, or sympathy or public opinion influence your decision. Do not access any social media or any internet site. So basically what I'm saying is nobody in this courtroom will pull out their phone and use it. I don't want any text messages sent between jury members and anybody sitting in those seats out there. If I see that, I will have the bailiff remove you immediately. Does everyone in this courtroom understand that?
Understood.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, let me proceed with the jury instructions. The fact that a criminal charge has been filed against Mr. Kindle, it's not evidence that the charge is true. Show no bias. A criminal in a court case is presumed to be innocent. The state must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you with an abiding conviction that the charge is true. Please try not to throw punches in the courtroom.
Sorry about that.
Well.
Now remember, as I stated before, they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It is your job to return a verdict of guilty or not guilty. To return such a verdict as guilty, you must be convinced by the facts and the evidence that will be presented here today beyond a reasonable doubt. The decision between the jurors today must be unanimous. Mr. Graham is the jury foreman. The People versus Mr. Kindle, scheduled for today, April 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Representing the people will be Mr. Thomas Wayne. Representing the defense, Mr. Shaw. The defendant is Ryan Kindle. Statement of charges are, on April 5th, 2019, Ryan Kindle showed no regard for the life of Detective Winters. He kidnapped her after she was robbed and cuffed by assailants.
Allegedly.
She was then taken to a remote
I didn't say that,
location
guys.
and left to drown. It also states that the people cannot allow someone like Mr. Kindle to commit an act of this nature and let it go unpunished.
Guys,
The charges
it's a
that
statement of
he's
claim. You
facing here
can't
today
object.
is one charge of attempted first-degree murder on a peace officer and one charge of kidnapping. We'll now move on to openings. Mr. Thomas Wayne, are you prepared to give an opening?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Mr. Shaw, are you prepared to give an opening?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Wayne, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, jury, people here of the court, I'm here today to prove that Mr. Kindle did, in fact, show no regard for the life of one of our fine detectives in this here city. That he did not care to see her safety at all, that he just had no intent but to see her drown. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, floor is yours.
Thank you. Your Honor, and members of the jury, I'd like to start off by saying thank you for taking the time out of your day. Today, we're going to be hearing a case of the People versus Ryan Kindle. My client is many things, but one thing he is not, it is an attempted cop killer. In this case, you're going to find an overwhelming lack of evidence placing Mr. Kindle on scene of the incident in question. And with that being said, we ask that you take into account all the evidence or lack thereof. In addition, we ask that you pay close attention to the trauma suffered by Scarlett Winters and determine if her testimony and her testimony alone should be used as evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mr. Wayne, are you prepared to call your first witness?
Here's where I can't pay attention to you guys, chat. I
yes,
gotta
Your
write
Honor.
down these questions.
All right, you may proceed with calling your first witness, and then I'll have the bailiff swear in the witness.
Thank you. The people would like to call Detective Scarlett Winters.
Ms. Winters, will you please
This gonna
approach
be
and
good.
sworn in?
Detective Winters, please raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you coil?
I do.
Witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Detective Winters, I'll remind you now at this time you are under oath. You may proceed, Mr. Wayne.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Winters, if you'd be so kind as to explain to the court what happened, led up to happening to the events of you being left to an unfortunate whim, we'll say.
Right, so I heard over comms that Malbert was in the area of Forum Drive and that there was some suspicious people around and to go and check it out. At this time, I'd already been dressed up to go undercover. I was originally heading to Pink Cage Motel, but instead I went down to Forum Drive, parked my car a few houses down from where I saw the suspects. I jumped over the fence and walked down the back alley to try and get a little closer to find out what I was seeing. As I did so, I had a gun pointed at my face, and before I had any chance to call for help, my hands were raised and I was restrained against my will. I was then robbed. All my possessions were taken. My money was taken, and whilst searching me, my ID was found. My identity was found out, and just cut me loose. It's just a robbery. Don't make this worse, kind of thing. Instead of cutting me loose, they conspired, the three of them, to get rid of me somehow, and a van came out. They threw me in the back of the van. As I was driving in this back of this van, they told me that they were just trying to get me out of there. They were just trying to make me safe. They were, getting me away from the bad people. And obviously, it was hard to believe them because they weren't stopping when I was requesting them to stop, and they weren't letting me go when I was requesting them to let me go. As we approached the water area, obviously I became a lot more concerned for my safety. And I again said to them, do not do anything, don't make this worse, let me, talk to you guys. And before I knew it, Malbert had jumped out and Mr. Kindle had driven me into the water. While I was in the water there, my safety beacon went off. Officers arrived within 3 minutes of me entering the water, 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. And I was resuscitated on scene and treated at Pillbox Medical, and yeah, that's basically what happened. So
thank you for that. Now, you said you did state and you did try to plead with them to just let you go, and that you would only charge them for robbery at that point.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Sustained.
At any point in time, did you feel that they were no matter what you said, were they just gonna take you to
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Sustained.
would you like me to answer?
No. When I sustain an objection, that means that
Just checking.
he will move on to the next question. If I overrule, you can answer. Thank you.
Okay.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Shaw. Do you have any questions for this witness?
I do. I have a few. Miss Winters, if you don't mind me asking, are you familiar with Mr. Kindle?
Yeah, Mr. Kindle is in our database. He's a known felon, and I have met him occasionally on the streets, but it was a very long time ago. It's been a while. Yeah, I don't know him personally, if that's what you're asking.
So I'm going to structure these questions in a fashion in which they'll get answered as a yes or a no. Do you run into Mr. Kindle often?
No.
Actually, this won't be a yes or a no, but when was the last time you ran into Mr. Kindle prior to this supposed incident?
I would say it's been a few months. He was out of town for a long time. I've never seen him since he got back.
So just to clarify here, and again, this will be structured as a yes or a no. Despite the fact that it's been a few months, actually, let me take a few steps back. This alleged incident where you were kidnapped, are you claiming that is the first time you had seen Mr. Kindle in months?
Yes.
Okay. And so, do you feel confident in your ability to identify someone despite the fact that you hadn't seen him in months?
Yes, based off the fact that Mr. Malbert was saying his name and I could see his face and matched it up to the MDT. It's definitely him.
At what point in time did you match it up to the MDT?
After. I had speculated who it was just to make sure. He used to wear a red puffer jacket. I had to check 100% that it was him before making the warrant. So, after it had all happened, I put in the name Kindle, which was what Mel kept referring to him as. and obviously it came up Ryan Kindle, checked his record, definitely the guy.
So, just to verify in this again, yes or no? You had to verify because you weren't sure.
As I said, his clothing was different, so yes, I had to make
or no,
absolute sure.
Miss Winters.
Yeah, please answer the question in a yes or no
yes.
format. Thank you.
Okay, so
Yes, I had.
just to avoid any kind of confusion and to allow the jury to make sure that they fully understood that, you weren't positive, so you had to look up Mr. Kindle's record, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you don't mind me asking, could you go into detail as to how your safety beacon works?
Right. So, when I am basically
Judge, it calls
when I'm
for a narrative.
I would hope the safety beacon she works, Your Honor, she fully understands the ins and outs.
Overruled. You may answer, Detective Winters.
So, when an officer goes unconscious, a safety beacon that has been attached to them while they are on duty, and the GPS tracker is attached to them, goes off. I guess I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer. I don't know how exactly it works, but I do know that it must go based off vitals or something like that, and gets pinged back to dispatch. That's all I know how it works. I'm not, like I said, I didn't create the device. I've just been instructed how to use it.
Okay, and so just for clarification, you were unconscious for, you said 3 minutes?
I believe I was in the water for about 3 minutes. Medical were on scene, and I would have been, resuscitated within 4 minutes, yes.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, where did you get the 3 minute time period? Where'd you gather that from?
The medics and the doctor and whatnot.
The medics and the doctor. So did they receive the time in which your safety beacon went off?
They were notified, yes. They were on communications.
They were notified immediatation?
As soon as that
Objection,
beacon goes
lacks
off,
personal
medical...
I'm sorry, say that objection again?
Lacks personal
Sorry.
knowledge.
Sustained. Your next question, Mr. Shaw.
Yep. Miss Winters, if you were unconscious for a total of 3 minutes underwater, do you truly believe that you can positively identify the individuals involved?
As far as my knowledge, that when people drown, they don't lose their memory, sure?
I'm not asking if you
unless
lost
I'm
your
wrong,
memory,
I'm not a medical
Winters.
professional. I'm not a medical professional, sure, but last I checked, people that drown, they usually remember how they drowned. Yeah.
Okay, Miss Winters. Let's move on from that. Miss Winters, were you the individual who wrote the warrants for the individuals involved in this?
Yeah.
Did you feel, or did you not feel that was a conflict of interest, given that you are claiming to be the victim within this incident?
I mean, I knew the details of the case. I knew what had happened to me. It made sense for me to write the warrant, as I do with all warrants that I write regarding to cases that I'm involved with. But, what else do you want me to say to that?
And, Winters, is it true that when somebody writes up a warrant, they are the only individual who can change, edit, or in any way, shape, or form, cancel or modify in any way? Is that true? As the person who wrote it, you're the only person who can adjust it?
I'm not a special. I don't know, honestly. I would have to ask my superior officer.
Objection. Lacks foundation.
Sustained.
Miss Winters, was there another individual, police officer specifically, who could have wrote that warrant at the time that you did?
Okay, so I got out of hospital. Ripley was on the scene. I got out of hospital, and Ripley went 42. I was expecting to sort of meet up with Ripley, but I guess he had to go. I'm not sure if there was. I think Angel might have been around too, but I can't remember if she went 42 as well. I don't remember having other officers around me in order to write the warrant. I needed to do it, but I could be wrong. I don't recall, sir.
So you can't remember if other people were around, but you did remember the entire incident prior to.
No, okay,
that's yes
when
or no.
I wrote the warrant.
A yes or a no, Winters.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anybody from the people side that would like to ask any more questions for Detective Winters?
Your Honor, I said not at this time.
All right, Miss Winters, you may step down at this time. Have any more witnesses you'd like to call Mr. Wayne?
Yes, sir. Is Officer Angel in the courtroom? We would like to call her.
I believe she is right behind you, sir.
This
Officer
isn't going to
Angel,
add
will
any
answer.
additional
Motion
information,
warning.
guys.
Thank you.
But let's put Angel.
Bailiff?
And then we got to write down the question
Your
she's
Honor.
asked.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
Rip.
and nothing but the
Same
truth,
goes to
so
Wade.
help you coil?
I do.
The witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Bailiff. All right, Officer Angel, I will remind you at this time you're now under oath. Mr. Wayne, you may proceed with your line of questioning for this witness.
Officer Angel, you were one of the officers that arrived once we'll say the distress beacon went off.
Objection, Your Honor.
Is that-
Leading.
Stained. Please rephrase your question.
What would you say the situation? How was the situation when you arrived to the scene of the recovery of Detective Linus?
As I arrived on scene, there was a broken fence next to the water. I put on my scuba gear and I dived in the water, and just below the dock I found a van that was filled with water occupied by Detective Winters. That would be the way I would describe the scene as I arrived there.
You immediately pulled Detective Winters from the van?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Stained. Please rephrase your question again.
Were you the one that notified EMTs once you have found Detective Winters?
Yes, I was the one who notified them.
And how long would you say it took them to get there?
From when the initial alert was sent out, or from when I pulled out of the water?
Yes, when the initial call went out from dispatch.
From initial call to response, I would approximate about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, but she was saved in 3? What? Ooh, that is not good. That is not good for them.
How would you state the nature of Detective Winters after she was pulled from the water?
This is only gonna hurt them.
Well, she was unconscious. She was not breathing, but she still was one, and she still had plenty of life left in it, is how I would describe that.
What?
After being revived by the EMTs, would you say she was still the same as you saw her before?
I could have objected.
If I recall, she was taken to the hospital, and I was not aware of a state after that, as stayed on scene gathering evidence.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Shaw,
Yep.
your witness.
Absolutely. Hello there, Officer Angel. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Mr. Shy?
Doing all right. So I do have a couple questions for you. Earlier, when Winters was up here, she had stated that it was 3 minutes. But you're claiming to be the officer who alerted EMS, and you are claiming approximately 4 minutes. Is that correct?
Can I clarify the
Objection.
statement?
On the grounds of?
Lack of knowledge.
Your Honor, I hope if she was the one who contacted the EMT, she would have personal knowledge of
She
exactly
would
how
have
long
no
it took
knowledge
them.
of what time the EMT would have had. She would have no personal knowledge of that.
If that's the case, then I imagine Winters wouldn't have any knowledge of it either.
As
No,
witness
overruled.
stated, she was
Overruled,
stated.
Mr. Savage. You may answer the question, Officer Angel, or if he needs to ask you the
Okay.
question again, he can repeat it for you.
Yes, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yep, Winters, or not Winters, I apologize, Angel. Winters claimed that it was 3 minutes. You are claiming 4 minutes. Which of the two figures are correct?
To clarify the number, the 4 minutes is from when the alert went out to when she was in the custody of EMTs. She was only underwater for approximately 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
I was on scene almost immediately.
Okay, so if I'm going back here to what Winters had said, her safety beacon went off and she was saved in 3 minutes. You are claiming it was 4 minutes. So is it safe to say that you have clear knowledge of what occurred, given that you weren't injured at the time?
No.
No. So it was 3 minutes.
Well, what I'm telling you is that is about how long it took me to get her out of the water. Her approximation sounds about the same as mine, and it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference to me.
All right, I'll move on. Certainly not a problem. After being asked, after she was revived, would you say that she was the same as before? Your response was she was taking a pill box and that you had stayed on scene gathering evidence. Could you elaborate into what you gathered?
What would you like me to elaborate on?
Well, I'm just questioning the lack of evidence here today, and the fact that you stated that you gathered evidence. So let me rephrase. Let me take a few steps back. Did you gather evidence?
Yes, I did.
And from the evidence that you gathered, Was there any physical evidence whatsoever?
Yes, we took pictures of the van as it was left underwater, and we also took pictures of the dirt road that was a bit disheveled from where it appeared to be a vehicle driving off into the water.
Now, if you gathered the evidence, scratch that. How long after this incident did you get back in contact with Winters?
I haven't been in contact with Winters since I visited the hospital very briefly after. The evidence was given to Senior Deputy Rogers.
Senior Deputy Rogers. Oh. Fortunately, I don't believe he's here today. So, would you be able to give me further insight as to how the safety beacon works?
Yeah, I will state that there is no documented way that we have about these beacons and how they work. It is
Actually, scratch that then. No.
It's a deadly thing
Nope.
that should be in.
Scratch that. I'm not gonna ask that question then. I do apologize. It's
Plate.
Can we have a sidebar?
Okay.
Reuse the plate.
Are
Do
you
you
requesting a sidebar, Mr. District
Yes, I
Attorney?
am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time we will pull a sidebar.
Highly unregulated, this attorney keeps coming down, asking lines of questions, stopping in the middle of it.
It is. So, Mr. Shaw.
Very unprofessional, Mr. Shaw.
oh, very unprofessional.
Okay, I will.
Lost my
dictate
train
that.
of thought.
Mr. Shaw. Yes, I understand that. If you could stay on train of thought and stopping yourself in between questions or stopping her as she's starting to answer, because it could be perceived, sir, that you don't want to hear her answer and you're cutting people off from hearing that answer, okay?
All right,
Thank you.
not a problem.
Thank you,
All right,
that was
go
all.
back now.
Yeah, you have to forgive me. I'm running a temperature of 102 right now.
All right, I understand.
Last question, Officer Angel. The time period in which you received the safety beacon went off and EMS responded, was it 2.5 to 3 minutes or 4 minutes?
Can you clarify the question here? As
Yep.
to how long EMTs responded, or to...
Objection,
Uh,
asked and answered.
All right, give me one moment. Can everyone hear?
Oh,
yes.
no, I...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. What was your objection, Mr.
Asked
Savage?
and answered already.
Sustained.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Wayne, do you have any questions? From the prosecution side, is there any more questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Mr.
No,
Savage,
I'm
do you
okay.
have any? You may step down, Officer Angel. Thank you. Your next witness, Mr. Wayne.
I'd like to call Trooper Ripley to the stand, Your Honor.
All right, Trooper Ripley, will you please approach?
Lieutenant Ripley, please raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you Coyle?
I do.
The witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Trooper Ripley, I will remind you this time you are now under oath, sir. Mr. Wayne,
Yes, sir.
you may proceed with the line of questioning for this witness.
Trooper Ripley, can you give us a brief summary of what transpired during that time while you were on shift?
Yes, sir. I was on patrol in the Grove Street area and saw a suspicious hangout. Mel Rickenbacker was in an area I'm not accustomed to seeing him in because I'm obviously not able to get close enough in a uniformed patrol, marked patrol unit. I called for Detective Winters to take a closer look. She arrived on scene and I left the scene. I believe I pulled somebody over for speeding a moment later. While I was checking their registration in the database, we got an alert that there was an officer down. After checking at the piers, we found it was Winters. She had been off the end of the pier. When I arrived on scene, Officer Angel was already on scene, swimming at the top of the water. She said she thought she saw a van down at the bottom and asked me to grab my oxygen tank out of my cruiser, which I did. I then jumped in, swam down. Sure enough, I saw a Weasel News van sunk to the bottom of the water. When I tried to open the back of it, I found Detective Winters inside, hands cuffed behind her back. Dragged her back up to the top, put her on the shore there. Angel had already called EMTs by that point. They arrived shortly thereafter to resuscitate her and bring her over to medical. We processed the scene as best we could, took photographs, got the report ready, and I visited her in the hospital before I had to unexpectedly go urgently, 42, which means end of shift for those who don't know.
Thank you for that. You said at the beginning that saw Mr. Melvin Rickenbacker there, and you said it was unusual for him to be there. How so, sir?
Yes, sir. I don't typically see Mel in that particular neck of the woods. That area has a different group of people that I tend to see around that area. I saw Mel Rickenbacker by a vehicle. I knew that his license was suspended at the time, so I kept on him in case he was driving. I saw him speaking with an African-American male with a green hat, and another gentleman was there as well. I didn't know if they're simply talking about sports or if there was some nefarious purpose to their meeting. It was in a suspicious back alley, so that's why I called Detective Winters over to have a look at what was going on down there.
Thank you very much. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wayne. Mr. Shaw, do you have any questions?
Yep. Just one. Trooper Ripley, at any point in time, did you see Mr. Kindle?
I may have.
That's actually going to be structured in a yes or no.
Is it? Okay. How do you figure?
You either did see him or you didn't.
I saw Mel Rickenbacker, an African-American male with a green hat, and a third individual. If that was Ryan Kindle, then the answer is yes. If it wasn't, then the answer is no.
Okay.
I was pretty far away, sir. I can't tell you the answer to that question.
Okay.
I maybe have, maybe didn't.
Let me rephrase for you then. Did you positively identify Ryan Kindle on Grove Street?
What a fine question. I did not positively identify Ryan Kindle. No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Wayne, do you have any more questions for this witness? Or Mr. Savage?
I do have a question. You, actually.
All right.
Trooper Ripley, did you see Mr. Melvin Rickenbacker there?
Objection, Your Honor. That's beyond the scope. I asked nothing about Melbert.
Brought up, Your Honor.
I asked about Kindle.
You stated on record that you saw Melvin Rickenbacker. I just need to confirm this for the jury.
Overruled. I'll allow this.
Would you repeat the question, please, Mr. Savage?
Did you see Melvin Rickenbacker at the scene?
I did, sir.
Are you aware that Melvin Rickenbacker pleaded guilty to the kidnapping of Miss Winters?
Objection, Your Honor.
I am
Relevance.
aware of that, sir.
Overruled.
You may answer, Trooper Ripley.
That is correct. I am aware of that, sir.
Are you aware that he pled guilty to the warrant that was issued by Detective Winters?
The very same. Yes, sir.
That is it. That's all my questions.
Mr. Shaw, do you have any more questions pertaining to the questions that Mr. Savage just asked?
Yeah, just one. Just one.
Keep it to the questions.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
answers from what Mr. Savage just asked. All right.
Trooper Ripley, were any of the questions that were just asked in any way, shape, or form relevant to Mr. Kindle?
Objection, lack of knowledge.
Overruled.
Can you repeat the question for me, Mr. Shaw? I don't think I understand.
Yes, were any of the questions that were just asked
That's why it
of
would be
you
lack of knowledge.
in reference to Mr. Kindle?
Yeah, sure.
How so?
Well, shoot. He's asking about a crime that I believe Mr. was just pled guilty to, and by what Scarlett and Brittany are both saying, he was there at the scene and all that kind of stuff,
No further questions.
I mean, right? Okay.
He weaseled his way into that.
Step down at this time.
He weaseled his way into that. Good on Ripley. I expect nothing less of Ripley. I love Ripley, guys. If you don't know who he is, guys, the Matt 924. Let me go shout him out.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
So you are resting at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Shaw, you may proceed calling your first witness.
Yes, I'd like to call Sun Moon.
All right, Mr. Moon, will you please come forward?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you Coyle?
I do.
The witness is sworn in, Your Honor.
Thank you, Bailiff. Mr. Moon, I will remind you now that you are now under oath, sir. Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I reference the deposition to Mr. Moon? I don't know if he has it available.
Are you talking about the deposition that I provided to you and the district attorney of Eugene Zuckerberg?
That is correct. And in fact, could I read that
Yes.
To the court?
You may. It's a very brief deposition.
Yeah, very brief. So, members of the jury, there is a deposition for a one Eugene Zuckerberg, who, if I recall correctly, is on the board of directors for Facebook. The date it was written is April 11th, 2019, but the listed date of incident is April 5th, 2019. And it states, Mr. Kindle was with me during this incident, and it was between the hours of 4 to 7. It was strictly business and Facebook-related issues. I was also with Mr. Sun Moon, and that's it in its entirety. Mr. Moon, would you be able to confirm that you were with Eugene Zuckerberg?
Yes, I can.
And was Ryan Kindle with you as well?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and what were you guys doing throughout the duration of the day?
Apologies. Yeah, I do the recycling at the, the recycling center, do the work there, here and there, It was about, I don't know, maybe like 4 p.m. We do the recycling for a little bit, do the correction of the boxes. After that, we do the gather the boxes in the back. We put them in the back, basically. Eugene was there. He was just talking about the time, about the frisbee and this and that and the other. We then go to the Facebook to do the talking of the business of the Facebook for the future. I believe there's something like of good Facebook opportunities and job here and there. Eugene is part of the board before. This is probably, I don't know, maybe like a 6, I don't know, something like that. We then go to do look for the house. I am looking for a house, looking to buy a house in the market. This probably finish, I don't know, go to do the...
Objection, this is a narrative.
Yes, Mr. Moon, when you give your testimony, keep it very, very brief. All right?
Okay, sorry, I just
All right, so please finish up this for this question here.
Yeah, we do go to the Facebook, we finish there, we do the house shopping, I'm looking for a house. Then we go to the food, buy the food at the burger shop.
And how long would you say you were with Mr. Kindle?
I would say it's somewhere maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours, something like that.
All right, no further questions.
Your witness, Mr. Wayne.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Yeah,
please.
he should have said longer. Yeah, he should have said 4, not 2.5.
Okay, I'm good to go. What time were you looking at these houses or discussing it?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
I need to clarify something.
Still asked and answered.
Overruled. I want to hear his answer here.
Could you repeat the question?
What time were you actually with Eugene Zuckerberg, Ryan Kindle, talking about these houses or whatever you were doing?
This would be after the Facebook, I don't know, maybe somewhere near 6 or after 6.
And you're stating at this time you were with him about 2.5 hours, is that correct?
No, I said 2.5, maybe 3 hours, something like that.
I think that's exactly what I said, Mr. Moon.
You said 2.5 hours. I said 2.5 hours to 3 hours.
Getting semantics here, Mr. Moon. Let's not try to be a wise ass. Mr. Moon, at this point, was that in the evening or the morning?
This is during the day, so, head time different and,
So you can't be sure of what time it really was, is what you're saying.
No, I'm telling you, it's during the day.
Well,
but,
did you have a copy of that deposition in front of you, Mr. Moon?
I do.
Did you read what is signed on that by Mr. Eugene Zuckerberg?
Yeah, 4 to 7.
Can you take
PM.
Yep, 4 to 7. Does it actually say what time it actually is during that day?
On the thing, it does not, but it is during the day.
Guys,
We don't have Mr. Zuckerberg here. We have a random time here. So again, Mr. Moon does not corroborate your story, does it?
Do you have a question or I don't know?
That was the question. Does it corroborate your story right here, according to the paper, to what you were stating?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered already. The deposition says 4 to 7, and he has clarified he has been with him for 2.5 to 3 hours.
In my courtroom, you are not going to argue like that back and forth and talk over each other. Do you both understand me?
Understood.
I will hold you
Yes,
both
sir.
in contempt in my courtroom. One at a time, please and thank you.
So, objection, asked and answered. He has already stated he was there for anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours, which is exactly in line with the
Can we
deposition.
have a sidebar, Your Honor?
Rebuttal to that objection, Mr. Savage?
Mr. Shaw obviously does not understand the words coming out of my mouth. I'm asking him to look at that piece of paper and see if what is written on that piece of paper matches the words that were coming out of Sun Moon's mouth to the time he was there within this meeting.
Overruled. Now, if you will press the sidebar, I will do that right now, and then we will come back. And
Yes, I
we'll
would
hear
love a
Mr. Moon's
sidebar with
answer.
Mr. Shaw because he's obviously not listening.
It's going to be good, chat.
All right, the problem here is I'm asking questions that are definitely not asked and answered. We're looking at a piece of paper here. We've got statements in the deposition that I didn't have a chance to review till about 2 minutes ago, and it's glaring issues in that deposition to what this gentleman on the stand said that the judge fucking overruled. Sorry for my language, but I'm a little upset that this rookie attorney is not actually listening to what I'm saying.
I am
Mr.
listening.
Savage, no more outbursts between the both of you. Do you both understand that?
I
This is
understand.
your last warning. This is my courtroom, all right? And when we pull a sidebar, this court is still in session. Do both of you understand that?
All right,
And
I'll
using
calm down.
language
My
like
blood
that-
pressure's getting high.
Can I speak?
Yes, you may speak,
Okay.
Mr. Savage.
The witness-
Let him speak.
The witness has stated multiple times now 2.5 to 3 hours. That deposition says 4 to 7. If you know basic math, you know damn well that is in line and is not a glaring issue. And you, excuse me.
Listen,
No, I'm asking the specific time he was
Mr.
stating.
Mr. Savage, Let him finish.
If you can't come to terms with 4 to 7 being 3 hours and him saying anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours, and you're claiming that's not in line, if you don't comprehend that, I don't know what to tell you. Furthermore, you being unprepared is not my problem, it's yours.
Oh, just so you know, you obviously can't listen. I'm stating to the actual time of the day, not how much time he's arguing.
Okay, Mr. Shaw, I believe what he's trying to say is the deposition, a sworn deposition by Mr. Eugene Zuckerberg, does state the hours of 4 to 7. Mr. Moon's answer is being vague with 2.5 to 3 hours. He's not being specific with the times that are lining up on said deposition.
I actually think
hours beginning at 6 or 6:30, so you have a variable
yes,
time.
That's exactly what Mr. Hodgson is saying.
Exactly what Mr. Artson was saying, which I was going to allude to next. The times are not matching up.
when he
It's a
stated
variable
times,
time, and he's trying to prove that.
when he stated times, I'm fairly certain when he gave a specific time, it was further into the day. So, that being said, if you would like to go back and question him, ask him from the very beginning, which time, or what he was doing at what specific time, feel free.
He already answered.
Your Honor, I feel we could take a 5-minute recess, let everybody kind of unheat themselves here.
You're
I'm good to
requesting a
go.
recess now.
No, we're good to go. The answers have been given.
Okay.
The problem here right now is Mr. Shaw has a misunderstanding of the words coming out of my mouth. I think he needs to get some airwax cleaned out.
Okay, no more comments like that, Mr. Savage. I will hold you in contempt. This is my last warning. Do you understand that? Both of you.
Yes, Your Honor.
I have not
Right.
spoken out of line once this entire instance.
I understand that, but there was several times that you got heated as well as Mr. Savage. I understand that both of you are passionate about the work that you do, but I will maintain order in my courtroom. All right, I will not turn this into a shouting match, a bitching match. Do both of you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, whether one was doing it more than the other.
I mean,
this isn't play school. This is not a recess. We're not out on the playground, okay?
I mean, if we're going to get into semantics here, he's not listed as a representative. That's listed as Thomas Wayne.
He is part of
He
the
is a
DA's
member of the
office.
district attorney's
I
office. and
I
as
understand
ruled
that.
before, when one
Right,
person
right.
from the DA's office is engaged, all people from the DA's office are engaged.
Exactly.
Should be listed as district attorney's office then, not Thomas Wayne.
No, it falls under the same Supreme Court ruling. I forget which one it is, but it indicates that when one
can get you the
attorney from
ruling
a
if you would
firm is
like it, Mr.
engaged,
Shaw.
Now I'll
that
pass.
all
I'll
are
pass.
engaged.
All right.
It's
thank
from
you.
roughly
Okay,
1920.
now, yes, it's from a very
wanted to
long
get
time
into
ago, and we've
semantics.
had it brought up in this courtroom before. About,
Really?
I'd say about 2 months ago when there was another court case. Okay, now, if everyone can act like civilized adults, we will go back out there and we will proceed with this court hearing. Does everyone understand that?
Yes, sir.
Civilized.
Understood.
Thank you. Mr.
Just a
Savage,
moment.
will you please repeat the question for him?
According to the deposition that you have a copy of, it doesn't match what you have stated here today in this courtroom.
4 to 7.
Your Honor, I motion to have this man brought up on perjury charges. This is not what he stated earlier to Mr. Shaw's Mr. Cross's questions.
Your Honor, if you just allow the witness to restate what he meant, greatly appreciate that.
You asked the specific questions. He gave times of 6:30 to 9:30. On the paper it says 4 to 7.
At no point in time did he mention 9:30.
That is true, Mr. Savage. He never did say
believe-
9:30. He did
Is it
mention
9?
6 p.m. as a time.
It was pretty sure he said 9:30. Or maybe that was Mr. Otson in the corner. I might have got confused by that.
He had the sidebar. There was a mention of 9:30.
Me
But
doing
again-
math.
That was Mr. Artson. Now, as to the charge of perjury and charging with Mr. Moon with perjury, we will speak of that after this court case. So, Mr. Moon, when you step down, I want you to stay in the courtroom. Do you understand that? And if I have to, I will have you detained, sir.
No problem.
Thank you,
No
Mr.
more
Moon.
questions for this, Your Honor.
Mr. Shaw.
Absolutely, since it seems we very much so need clarification. Mr. Moon, when did your encounter with Ryan Kindle and Eugene Zuckerberg start?
Objection asked and answered.
No. I'm not asking midday. I'm asking when it started. He gave a timeline.
Overruled.
Thank you.
It's overruled. Go ahead, Mr. Moon. You may answer the question.
I would say somewhere like at 4.
Round 4. And what did you do after that?
We work at the recycling center. We do the recycling. go to the Facebook, talk about the Facebook business, and then do the house shopping.
Okay. And can you give a specific timeline as to when each incident occurred? Roughly.
Roughly, I don't know, possibly like almost like a 50-minute, 40 something per one, an hour or something like that. Not entirely sure, but around that.
Can Mr. Moon speak up? I could not hear him, sir.
If you could speak a little louder, Mr. Moon, so everybody can clearly hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Just a little bit louder. You'll be fine.
Yeah, somewhere I would say like each process was, I don't know, maybe like 50 minutes to an hour.
Just to verify, just to ensure that, there's no confusion. You're not saying 15, you're saying 50 to an hour, correct?
It's 50 and 1 hour, maybe 105. I don't know. It time passed by, so.
Okay, and just to verify, you're saying it's anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour for each instance. I believe you stated the recycling center, then Facebook, then house shopping. Is that correct?
Yes, and then we do the burger shot.
And then burger shot. Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Savage or Mr. Wayne?
Yeah, I got a question. A couple questions. Mr. Moon, in your first line of questioning with Mr. Shaw, did you not state 2 hours you were with Mr. Kindle?
I did not. I mentioned it was around a 2.5 hour to 3 hour.
So, in your second line of questioning with Mr. Shaw, you've changed that to 3 instances of 50 minutes to an hour.
I have not changed anything. I just repeat what I said before.
But did you ever mention the different instances of going to places first line of questioning?
I have not. Recycle center, the Facebook.
So, in the next set of questions, you answered his same questions in a different style with different answers.
Objection, Your Honor. Is that a question?
That is a question. I was asking him why he changed the way he answered those questions to a different time narrative. It would have been a little bit more specific.
Not able to
Hold on. Let me finish ruling on the objection first, Mr. Moon. Overruled. You may answer now, Mr. Moon.
Okay. Just that not able to be specific because I was not keeping track of my time-wise, basically. I just rough estimate.
So from the time of the first set of questions to the second set of questions, you were able to think longer and come up with better answers? Is that correct?
Can you repeat? I don't know.
That's a yes or no question. I'm asking you from the time Mr. Shaw asked his first set of questions to the second time he asked pretty much the same set of questions. You had more time to remember what happened and give better answers. Yes or no?
No.
You were able to give more details.
No, I simply stated what I said before.
But what you stated before, Mr. Moon, the first set of
Objection,
questions
Your
to the
Honor.
second set of
Badgering
questions,
the witness.
different sets of answers.
Sustained. He's asking to answer your questions now, Mr. Savage. I think the point has been clear, and you've made your point to the court.
All right. No more questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Moon, at this time, you may step down.
And this is
as
the
I
case,
stated,
guys.
Do not leave the courtroom.
No problem.
Savage.
Judge LaBar, the deposition,
Yes.
I'd like that motion to stricken that from the record since it does not include a proper time format on it.
Mr.
Of
Shaw?
Eugene Zuckerberg.
I'm just going to need a second. Your Honor, common sense would dictate that business and Facebook-related issues wouldn't be dealt with starting at 4 a.m. and in fact would be more in line with 4 to 7 p.m., which is perfectly in line with what Mr. Moon said. And as such, definitely going to go against that objection.
There are many contractors in the United States of America that start work at 4 a.m. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters, they got to get out there, do their job, size up their jobs, and that is a daily activity. 4 a.m. is a normal start time here in America. You ask any labor union in the United States at what time they do start work.
Your Honor, we're referring to people who carry board of director positions at Facebook, not trade positions.
It's an employment, Your Honor. Pretty much management starts very early in the morning in these trade unions. They would be considered executives in management.
At this time, I'm going to deny that motion, sir.
All right.
Mr. Shaw, your next witness, please.
The defense rests.
All right. Are both of the sides prepared to move on to closing?
Absolutely.
Mr. Wayne?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes,
All right,
Your
Mr.
Honor.
Wayne, you may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court and of the jury, as you heard today from the testimony of Detective Winnis, that she herself was held and detained and was attempted to be murdered by Mr. Kindle, and that there was Melbert Rickenbacker who did plead guilty to these charges, who is an associate who was hanging out with Mr. Kindle, as it was told. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, your closing, please.
Absolutely. Your Honor, members of the jury, we're here today because Scarlett Winters has falsely accused my client, Ryan Kindle, of being involved in her attempted murder. Scarlett Winters then took it upon herself to write out a warrant in a situation where she claims to be the victim. And again, for those of you who aren't aware,
Objection.
Okay.
Yes.
This Winters
Mr.
was in
Savage?
fact a victim. That's a false statement by the defense attorney there.
Stated she claimed to be the victim. You can claim and be the
She
victim.
was the victim.
You can claim and
You're
be
saying
the
she's-
victim.
It's going to overrule that. Mr. Shaw, please proceed with your closing to the jury, please.
All right. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Scarlett Winters took it upon herself to write out a warrant in a situation where she claims to be the victim. And for those of you who aren't aware, that means that she's the only person who's capable of removing that warrant or editing it in any way, shape, or form. And unless she's around, those warrants cannot be disputed. As such, the burden of proof is on the district attorney, in which they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that my client, Ryan Kindle, committed the alleged crime. And to clarify, in order for my client to be found guilty of the crimes being alleged today, you must believe that there is no reasonable doubt whatsoever. So I ask you guys to all take this into account. The only person that we heard from today that could verify that anyone else was even there was someone who was underwater for an extended period of time. In fact, I want each of you jury members to recall the last time you reported a crime where there were no witnesses aside from yourself. And I want you all to remember the times you've been told that the situation ended up being a he said, she said, and there was nothing that the police could do for you. Do you guys reasonably believe that someone who is underwater for so long has a clear memory of exactly what occurred?
Objection. Lacks knowledge. He's not a medical professional to make that statement.
In addition, 2 individuals are verifying that Mr. Kindle was with them, which means he has a verified alibi. And any reasonable person should believe there's doubt within the situation, and as such should find my client, Ryan Kindle, not guilty. Thank you.
All right, members of the jury, I'm now going to read you some very specific instructions before I send you in the back to deliberate. As I stated before, Mr. Graham is the jury foreman, and you must reach a unanimous decision. Mr. Graham, when you've all reached a decision, could you please let the bailiff know?
Will do, Your Honor.
Juror, single file. Follow me, please.
Now I'm going to ask the rest of the members here to step through those double doors and either wait out in the lobby area, or you may step out into the front area where the security is, or you may even go outside if you feel free, if you want to have a cigarette, if you want to talk amongst yourselves. And then once the verdict has been reached and the decision has been reached, we will form back here in the courtroom.
Ready.
We have all the members of the jury here. All right, okay, I will go ahead and call this court into session. Mr. Foreman of the jury, have you reached a verdict at this time?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
All right, what say you on the charges? And I want you to list them one at a time, sir.
On the charge of attempted first-degree murder on a peace officer, we find not guilty.
Fuck yeah! We did it! We did
Order
it!
in the court, please.
On the charge of kidnapping, we find not guilty.
Fuck yeah!
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham.
We did it,
Mr.
chat.
Kindle, you've been found not guilty by a jury of your peers. You will be free to go back about your normal duties in the city and your daily life, sir. Do you understand that? Mr. Kindle, I'm speaking to you.
Mr. Kindle.
Yes,
Right.
I'm.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you,
still,
people
this
of
court is...
Los Angeles, Los Santos.
All right,
I
Mr.
plead
Kindle,
the fifth.
please stop right there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. All right, now, jury members, if you go to the back of the office, you will be paid for your service here today. If you go ahead and proceed back there right now, and then I will go ahead and dismiss this case. Mr. Moon, I still advise you to stay here. We have one matter that's important to take care of, and I will go ahead and deal with that as soon as I'm done.
Windows
paying the
wants to
jury members. Do you
update in
understand
10
that, Mr. Moon?
minutes, so no, Windows, you are not allowed.
Yes, I understand.
All right, thank you. Court is now dismissed. Please
We did it.
Excuse me?
file
did
out
it,
in
chat.
an orderly fashion. Don't punch each other.